When I first started this, I think we had maybe 250 total programs. Now we're close to 500 at the high school level.
Yeah.
We're at 47 or 48 now on the college, and we probably added 7 high school programs last year alone. And we even have, a little bit of a box season that's coming into play.
You're listening to the First City Lacrosse Podcast, the second greatest lacrosse podcast on the planet. Buckle up, strap your helmet on, and let's go.
Welcome back to First City Lacrosse. I am your host once again, Coach Jon. This is First City Lacrosse, the second greatest lacrosse podcast on the planet. And I have a very special guest with us today. This one's a little bit unique. This is not one of our normal guests that we would have, but I would like to introduce everyone to Lee Roggenburg, from the man behind Florida Lacrosse News. Lee, welcome to the podcast, sir.
John, thank you very much for inviting me to do this. We have all across the state been hoping to see the Panhandle really get traction in the sport. It certainly looks like it's happening going forward now. I'm just really glad to be on the show with you.
Well, listen, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you. And I got to say, when you reached out to me and said, hey, do you want me as a guest? I had to do a little bit of research because I think I know lacrosse up here pretty well. I know a lot of the people. I know a lot of the players. And I've been able to reach a lot of players outside and a lot of lacrosse people outside here. But when you popped up and I was like, dang, do you remember what I said?
Something along the line. You weren't really sure who I was.
Yeah, exactly. And your response it made me laugh, and it also made me really kind of dig deep into what I was missing, because I said, man, I feel like I should know you, but I don't really know who you are. And you said, if you don't know who I am, then you don't know lacrosse in Florida. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. But now we're here, and now you get to tell me all about this. And the most important part is you get to reach several thousand people that maybe have not heard of Florida Lacrosse News like me, or that need to know about it, because coaches know who you are. The college coaches know who you are. The high school coaches know who you are. So you are a resource for them. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you got involved with Florida Lacrosse News, and we'll go from there.
Well, the story actually starts in the 70s. Growing up on Long Island, did not play. I was kind of in one of the few areas at the time where we didn't really have a lot of youth, and high school lacrosse wasn't really as known in my area in the South Shore of Long Island. My first experience with watching a game in person was actually 1977, when I was a freshman at Hobart College, which was obviously one of the dominant programs in America at the time. And I was fortunate enough that the 1977 team was probably the best team in Hobart's history. So I got a very interesting introduction to it right away. Very first game I ever saw was a game against Rochester. Hobart won 33-1.
Oh, wow.
So I turned to the guy next to me and I said, it's not always like this, is it? He said, no, not at all. Don't worry about it. Adelphi's coming in, and they're a really good team on Saturday, and Hobart won that game 22-6. So just to give you an idea how good that team was, Hobart beat Syracuse that year 24-8.
Wow. Okay.
And you look at that team, and Rick Blick in goal, Terry Corcoran on attack, and Dave McNaney, Jimmy Calder. I mean, it just went up and down. We had third-team middies who, by the time they were seniors, were first-team All-Americans. Give you an idea how deep and good that team was. Wow. So that was my first introduction, and obviously the 4 years there, paid very close attention, even to the point that at the end of my seasons there, I was filming the games for Coach Jon. And so I had a nice introduction to that. And so obviously after graduation back then, a lot of people who are my age know that getting lacrosse information was not easy. And so you kind of grabbed it where you could. We used to get maybe 20 or 30 minutes on the old CBS Sports Spectacular, where they would tape the championship game 3 weeks in advance, and then kind of give you a little bit of it to peruse as you went on. And then eventually, obviously, you pick up on things like Inside Lacrosse and back then Lax Power, which was obviously a big deal for following the sport. And after a while, I started posting a little bit on Lax Power. I would go to some of the local games here and also post on the Hobart Forum. And then in 2012, I went up to the state championships. St. Andrews was playing Lake Highland up in Stewart, or as Port St. Lucie, one or the other, and was introduced to one of the founding fathers of Florida Lacrosse News. So it had been around for a couple of years before I had even known about it. And it was basically developed so that the Team Florida parents, which were mostly Orlando and South Florida kids, had a chance to share photos, share information, where were you going to stay on the road trip and that type of thing. And so I met one of the founders, Ernie Mahler, who introduced me to Brian Davis, who was pretty much running the site day to day. And they said, well, why don't you try writing in 2013's high school season? So that's when I first started. And because I didn't play the game, I kind of took a little bit different viewpoint to how to write about it. I wrote about it more from the fan standpoint than, say, the player or the coach's standpoint, and tried to sort of paint the picture of what I was seeing when I would attend a game. And it got it hit a nerve with the readers. I probably went to 30 games that first year, covered them all, one by one next day, and it got a following, and it started to sort of grow from there. And to be honest, there's been some ups and downs. Obviously, when you're new to this, you'll step on some toes sometimes because you think, oh, high school kids, I'll treat them the same way as the New York Post would treat the New York Rangers or the New York Yankees. And so that had a couple of hiccups along the way. But, you eventually learn. And over time, we evolved the site and added a lot of different things, kind of took a Facebook feel to it, to the website itself, so that people could contribute also, commitments, game recaps, things like that. And just every year we would add a feature. And then a couple of years ago, or actually beginning of last year, running around doing games, press releases, everything, because of all the press releases from the colleges we would put up and all that stuff, it got a little tough. Mm-hmm. And because this is not what I do for a living also on top of that. So eventually we just came up with the idea to move all the Substack for the new information. That's kind of where we are now.
Wow. What a journey. And so now where are you at? You're in South Florida, Central Florida?
Yes, I live in Boca. Okay. And pretty much have been here. I had a couple of years in Pompano, but for the most part, I've been in Boca. Came down to Florida in 1991. And obviously I don't get out to the games the way I used to because we needed the time to expand to the girls coverage and to do the college a little bit more and to cover the kids who have gone on to the college programs out of the state of Florida. I mean, when I first started this, I think we had maybe 250 total programs. Now we're close to 500 at the high school level. Yeah. We're at 47 or 48 now on the college. We have new college programs announced this year. Nova's women, St. Thomas in the NAIA on the men's side. They're brand new this year. New college last year. And we probably added 7 high school programs last year alone. And we even have, a little bit of a box season that's coming into play. We've been trying to capture that. We did lose the launch, unfortunately, when MLL folded them up. But just to be able to, cover enough of that is really time consuming. And thank God my normal work is pretty sleepy. So it gives me a chance to concentrate as much as I can. But to be honest, in the during this high school season, normal days, 6:30 to 8 or 9 p.m. But it's a labor of love too. So no complaints about that part of it.
It really is. And it's, I think it's interesting to note that, Florida is still continuing to grow. Like you said, the high school programs continue to grow and develop. And, like you said, also there's a few hiccups along the way. Some of these programs, they have a good foundation. They do this rise, and then, people lose interest, or maybe a coach leaves, or, their club team that they were really pulling a lot of players from goes away. And so now they're struggling to maintain like some semblance of a program. But despite the fact, Florida colleges are adding these programs, and a lot of schools are adding programs. And we're seeing also some other colleges lose their programs. Either they lose funding or something like that. How do you think all of that contributes overall to just the image of lacrosse in Florida?
One of the tougher things that we have to deal with in this, there's a couple of things. First of all, this is a football state, and a lot of the football coaches are not as keen on their kids playing or trying lacrosse in the spring. Some of the smarter schools, St. Thomas Aquinas is a perfect example of this. Fantastic football program, national recognition, terrific lacrosse program. The two work hand in hand. The athletic director at St. Thomas is Twan Russell, the former NFL star, University of Miami star, loves the sport. But there are a lot of other ADs who don't get the sport and think it's more of a nuisance than it's worth. There's still some issues with the belief that it's this upper middle class, wealthy, white preppy sport.
Like a niche sport.
Kind of silly given who invented it.
Yeah.
But, that's, and also, a lot of people up north have a hard time understanding this. Our state is so vast. Travel is an issue. And, we have had first round playoff games where it's 300 miles one way. It's the poor kids that have to deal with that. I mean, you're in the one area of the state where it's the hardest. You and the Treasure Coast are basically the last when it comes to really building the depth amongst the schools and hoping to take a little bit of the travel need away if you really want to be a high-end program. So, up in your area, Gulf Breeze, Pensacola Catholic, Maclay, South Walton, these are all legitimate programs that are sort of still in that need to travel more in order to get the higher end games. Because it's very hard to get a Nice, a Ponte Vedra, a Bowles to make a trip all the way out to you.
Yeah. And
certainly where we are, I mean, I tell people that if you're driving from Boca to Pensacola, that's like going from DC to Atlanta.
Yeah, it's a long way.
It's the same mileage at the same time to do these things. So, over time, I would hope that Panhandle teams, for instance, would be able to maybe meet some of the better programs down in the Orlando area, maybe come down for a weekend, stay overnight, and maybe have a Benjamin go up and play both of them in Orlando and things, have like weekend jubilees and things like that.
I think we're starting to see more of that. I know Pensacola Catholic did that last year. They were in, I think they were in Palm Coast for a couple of games. They picked up a couple of good ones. And then Gulf Breeze also has a tendency to go out there. It's closer. The Atlanta teams are closer, and Alabama teams are, of course, very close, but they're not sanctioned. So the game's almost, it's like a throwaway game. It doesn't count for much.
And you have to be careful on the Max Prep side to make sure that you've got the games that get into the database.
Yep.
Where I keep telling people we're still in puberty. in the state. People think that, oh my God, we're producing all this great talent, which we are, but we've only been like 15, 16 years, whatever it is, as a sanctioned sport with a state championship, a legit state championship. And we just went to at-large bids a couple of years ago. The growth is there. It's just a matter of, one of the other things that we have to do is have to make sure we get the referee pool correct. We have to get more referees certified. So I'll throw my public service announcement in now. Kids, if you are not getting certified, you are making a huge mistake. If you're a high school kid, you get certified, you go out to a club event in the summer, you get the under nines, and you're getting $35, $40 a game, whatever it is, for an hour work. That's pretty good pocket change at your age. And never mind that you now learn what a referee is looking for on the field, and that helps your gameplay grow. So kids, get out there and get certified. You won't regret it. And if you get down the line where you're doing a college game, that's pretty good money, guys. Yeah. Pretty good money. So go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Okay, I want to come back to the high school stuff, but just because that's both of our, I think, main area of focus. But can we touch base a little bit on what we're seeing sort of on the national and world stage with the PLL, the MLL, World Lacrosse Games, which are happening right now, basically?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on kind of where we're going, how it's being advertised, how it's being presented, and what, if any, changes do we need to be making?
This is something that I've done an awful lot of thinking about, particularly when it comes to how the sport is marketed. And I have to really throw some blame at the Northeast on this. You have an entire period of years where we're the fastest growing sport in America, but we kept marketing the sport in a way I thought was inappropriate. First of all, we worried more about the hardcore lacrosse fan than we did growing eyeballs on TV. When you look at PLL, and let's not kid ourselves, PLL as a product on the field is fantastic. I don't see the point in marketing it as cool. I don't see the point in marketing it as personalities. This sport sells itself in its drama. The skill, all of the late game fireworks that we see, overtime is fantastic. That's what we need to focus on when we market it. And I think PLL, as the season went on, learned that a little bit more. I noticed that the TV presentations got more adapted towards what we saw in the field and less about personalities. A couple of years ago, they made a terrible mistake. They spent what seemed like half their ad budget on Lyle Thompson. And then Lyle decided not to play the season. That's just disastrous. This sport needs to understand that you might have to take a step back for the long-term growth of the sport. We have had the premier events in this sport, the NCAA Final Fours, have been in the Northeast 99.9% of the time. That is just, and then you wonder why you're not growing eyeballs. You have to take the game around the country. Let people see it in person. I have no doubt Denver would sell out a Final Four or come close to it. I know Texas would do very well. We put 10,000 for the Notre Dame Maryland game in Atlanta this year.
Yep.
Those who are you familiar with Christian Swayze's book?
No.
We Showed Baltimore.
Okay.
I've been reading it. Christian, shout out to you. Great read. Right on page 24, he talks about in 1971, Hopkins and Army brought their game to the Astrodome and put 18,000 people in the stands.
Wow.
In 1971. What is the issue with going around the country? You can't keep the sport to yourself in one geographic area and expect others to just accept it, keep paying to go to it in person. Yeah, 30, 32,000. Okay, great, fine for a Final Four. But the 50,000 was like 15 years ago already.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand that the sport has to be marketed by itself and let the drama sell itself, because all of us who have watched a really well played game, who the heck doesn't come back for more?
Yeah.
We all do. But the TV eyeballs are bad. The scheduling is a little off.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe PLL needs to play during the college season. Doesn't seem to hurt college basketball in the NBA. Doesn't hurt college hockey in the NHL. College football and pro football play the same time. What are we afraid of?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to use stadiums, I mean, you can go to a college stadium in March on their off week. There's no issue there.
Yeah.
So and also we're in Florida. We haven't seen a drop of PLL in this state yet.
No, they had. Let's see. They did a couple of years ago during their first year, their inaugural year. They played some games in Atlanta, and I would be willing to. I went to those games, and I don't know how many people showed up. I would be willing to say I think we were at. Was it Kennesaw State College? I think was the stadium we were at, and I want to say there were probably a solid 12, 13,000 people there. It wasn't a sellout, but you could put probably 60,000 people in that stadium. So
I went to the Star in Frisco, the MLL championship game in 2017, and 7,500. And if I were the women, if I were the NCAA women, I saw the Tufts head coach was kind of complaining because she said that their Final Four was not in with the rest. And it's sort of like maybe the women need to establish their own identity on this. Maybe the women's semifinal should be on Friday, the 2 and 3 finals on Saturday, the women's final on Sunday, or maybe Saturday, Monday also, but don't do it with the men.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to Frisco, and you're talking about 12,000 at seats. It's indoor. There's no weather issue. Southwest and American have Dallas hubs. Plenty of hotels. Plenty of drive. I would bet that would sell out. And it takes it to areas that haven't experienced these main events. Get away from Philly and Boston already. Hartford was a disaster during COVID.
Yeah. And,
even if I would like to see it in San Diego, I'd like to see it in Seattle, I'd like to see it in, they bragged about Minneapolis doing 6,000 for PLL.
Mm-hmm.
What is the importance of catering to the 30,000 people in the Northeast who don't want to get on a plane?
Right.
When all of us have to do it anytime we want to go there. Share the wealth a little bit here.
Put it in Las Vegas. Cheap airfare to and from Las Vegas. Easy to get to.
So many things that
St.
we have to do.
Yep.
Even to the and you look at the TV broadcasts, they're wonderful. Does anyone complain when you've got Anish and Kark or Anish and Quint? I mean, we're Cotter, Dixon and Beninati on the Big Ten Network.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got people who know the sport. But we have to and this is the last piece that I think we've been missing. We haven't smartened the audience. We have multiple versions of this sport. No other sport that I can think of has such a big difference between the men's game and the women's game.
Yeah, they're totally different.
So how do you understand what you're looking at on the field? Then you have the sixes. Then you have the NLL. then you have PLL's got a slightly different take. That's 5 different versions of the sport.
Yeah.
What we're missing is what the NFL did, what I think the NFL did to become really popular. And that was the Ron Jaworski approach on ESPN. Couple of hours. It's not hard to do. I mean, you broadcast, you know this is not terribly difficult to do. And we got YouTube. Have a show every week where for 2 hours top coaches break down film for you, teach you what you're seeing. I used an example in an article I wrote that if you took 100 men's lacrosse fans and said, explain the 8-meter arc to me in the women's game, very few of them could probably do it.
Yeah.
You can take 1 million women in this country and ask them to explain the difference between cover 2 and man-to-man in the NFL, and you'll find them. Why? Because they took the time and the resources to teach the people what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And that's a major missing piece that we need to do more of in this sport. And then over time, it becomes a boulder rolling downhill. People say to themselves, they wake up on Saturday, hey, Carolina's got Hopkins coming in. Guys, let's go eat breakfast, get back for the noon start so we can watch the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we think we're going to see. That's where we have to get to make this sport where it should be. Look at the worlds. I mean, the world championships, I mean, they're in Korea. Wonderful that's getting around the world. We have 98 countries now in world lacrosse.
Yeah.
And 10 or 11 of them are in Africa.
It's amazing.
We saw Jamaica knock off Ireland. We see Kenya taking to the sport with pure joy. It's out there for the taking. But USA Lacrosse is going to have to. I think USA Lacrosse made a major mistake with this chapters approach, de-emphasizing it, worry about the national teams. I mean, did that work in soccer? We got a great sport. It'll market itself if we can get it into enough eyeballs. Eyeballs are the key, not people in the stands at a Final Four. I would rather have 15,000 in the stands and 1 million people watching on TV than 35,000 in the stands and 300,000 watching on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is the better idea?
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's and now you know why some people up north hate me.
Well, I think there's the idea. First of all, I will say this, that I coming from I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, no idea what lacrosse was, wasn't a thing where I was growing up, never even heard of it until really much later in life. And the only reason I really got involved because my boys, they had just recently come to live with me, and I was desperately kind of searching for something to do as a family, and one of my boys said, I think I want to try lacrosse. And I said, awesome, let's try lacrosse. I didn't know where to find it. I could barely spell it. I didn't even know if it was a thing, but I started looking, found a program, and they started playing and they fell in love with it. And I think that's one of the things is the kids pick it up a lot faster than the adults do, for sure. And adults are very hesitant because a lot of times pride or ego might get in the way a little bit. It takes a little bit of humility to learn a sport. That I tell people, the sport is not complicated. At the end of the day, the ball goes in the net. It's like basketball, ball goes through the hoop. It's like football, ball needs to go to the end zone. It's not a very complicated sport. There are complexities to it that you have to learn. There's nuances to it, but and I think I'm going to get some hate for this as well, but we cannot keep marketing it as the fastest game on 2 feet. We can say that all we want, but nobody's going to believe us if we're not presenting it that way. Because when they go to a high school game and they see everybody standing around because they're not passing the ball very well, or the ball's on the ground more than it's in the stick, then they're going to be like, wow, that's a big lie. This isn't the fastest game. They have to see it at that very high level to understand that it really is a fast game. You really don't get a break if it's played correctly. So I agree with you. We need to market it better. We need to present it better. And adults in general, your kids want to play. They want to play. It's interesting. They're scared to do it. And if you tell them that they're not going to play because you don't know the sport, well, that's a major issue too. That's a major foul. We have to be willing to open ourselves up to be like, hey, I don't know anything about this sport. We're going to learn it together. Or I know very little about it. When I was passing out flyers for a youth program, this was, probably 7-8 years ago, for a youth program I was running. And I was giving out flyers at a football, like a youth football event. And I gave one to a kid, probably 10 years old. And he's like, oh, cool. Sounds good. And he takes it over to his mom. And literally 30 seconds later, Lee, he brings it back to me. He hands it back to me. And he goes, my mom says I only play contact sports. And I was like, you and your mom have never seen this game. but like you said, this is Florida's a football state. And that's what we're kind of dealing with here in terms of like growing the game. Like you said, a lot of football coaches don't understand the benefits of letting their star athlete be a two-sport star athlete. They want them to play football or baseball or soccer or whatever it is year round because they think that's going to benefit them as the coach and as a program. It really doesn't do much to benefit the player.
Well, there's so many facets. This is an unusual parenting generation too. This is, and it does make it a little bit difficult at times, getting parents to put in the commitment. Some obviously go very gung-ho. Some are not really sure how to go about helping, and then they end up listening to people who maybe sometimes don't exactly have the kid's best interest at heart. But when it comes to all of these pieces, education helps, but I'll throw another thing in there also. Getting the sport into the elementary schools via speed lacrosse, which is a very easy, introductory, safe way to do it. And just getting the kids a taste. One of the things that if you did grow up in the Northeast in a lacrosse area was once you were a kid, you might have had an older brother who was already taking up the sports, a little bit easier transition. We have a lot of linear families that the sport has been known for over the years. Mm-hmm. But one of the major complaints you tend to hear is that recreation ball has been hurt badly. Where do kids go to play just for fun?
Yeah.
It used to be that it was easy for us. School fields were open up north. We didn't have fences around schools. You could just take your baseball glove over to the baseball field in the back of the school, play all day if on a weekend or whatever. And we could use that a little bit more for lacrosse too. And speed lacrosse is a good way to do it. And so I think that's one thing that USA Lacrosse, and I kind of wrote this in the Substack. I don't remember today or it's going to be tomorrow's publication, where I talk about USA Lacrosse spent a lot of effort and resources on initiatives that didn't really have long-term effect. So I wrote, for instance, what was the difference between Harlem Lacrosse and Sankofa? Sankofa being an initiative, a diversity initiative, where they would go to a lesser served community, provide sticks. But if there wasn't any follow-up, it was one and done. Whereas
Yeah.
Harlem Lacrosse seems to have found a sustainable model. Why did we not just keep rolling that out? Why did we have to try to reinvent the wheel? Just keep taking Harlem Lacrosse and expanding it.
Yeah.
It's about 5 cities now, 6 cities now. Just keep working on that one. But also find a way to support the rec side. And if that means speed lacrosse, I mean, speed lacrosse is not an expensive outlay.
Mm-mm.
So you could take that into every elementary school in America for probably what we spent, for a couple of years on Sankofa. Or maybe that's an overstatement, but that's the basic idea. Find a way to make it fun. And you just have to put the roots in the ground. When you look around this state and so many others, the successful long-term programs have a youth program in the area. The youth program hopefully focuses as much on skill development and team development as it is on going to a weekend event.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we sometimes have too many weekend events, but again, I get trashed for that viewpoint too at times.
Well, I will say I think the weekend events are fine. A lot of times that's where the availability is. One of the things I worked really hard to do when I was, when I was coaching on the youth side and I was part of the leadership board for our league, our new league up here, is that I tried really hard to get teams to play weeknight games, not go to a tournament, just bring your team, show up for 1 or 2 games and be done with it. And we got it done a couple of times. It was really hard to kind of get going. And what we often find is, especially in the spring, field space can be at a premium. Other sports conflicting can be tough. Parents expect weekend tournaments right now when they sign up for a sport. So that's sort of the thing we have to manage. I will also say this, the idea about playing for fun is exactly where it should be. Skill development. I've always believed this, even in high school. I think there's a time and place for skill development. Sure, you're a varsity team, you want to win, but it's about skill development. 90% of those players are not going to go on to play in college. It's just kind of the way it works out. That's how the numbers end up. But we need to teach them skills that are transferable to other things in life.
Skills, yes, skills, but also just a lifelong enjoyment of the sport.
Yeah.
When you think about how many kids play but don't watch the games.
Yeah.
They don't go to a high school game. They don't go to a college game. We've got, and down my way, I'm 2 miles from Lynn. They don't charge to go to the games.
Yeah.
I've got a free Division II top 10 women's program, top 20 men's program that I can go to for free.
Yeah.
How do I not take advantage of that?
You would think. I know when I was coaching at high school, I would always tell my youth players, I'm like, if you show up in your jersey, I'm going to pay your fee. Just show up and watch the game. And we would get a handful. It was really frustrating. I would actually say this to any player. Any player, wear your jersey, you're going to get in for free. And I would always make sure that people at the gate knew that I was paying for anybody that showed up in a jersey. But it was just like it was really hard to get them to a game. Whether it's transportation issues or timing issues or whatever it happened to be. Is the biggest issue is that, well, not the biggest issue. One of the big issues is, especially on the rec side right now, there really needs to be a strong, heavy focus on development. These ideas that we're going to have a league with a championship at the end of like a championship game at the end. Well, that's going to make it too competitive. And when you have programs that have multiple teams in this league, and you're more focused on winning this championship that at the end of the day doesn't matter for anything. You're going to get a plastic trophy if you're lucky. You're going to get bragging rights for about a week, and and
Well,
it's completely irrelevant, but
yeah.
you've neglected all the other players in that league. And it's just like the teams that are really trying hard to develop, that are struggling to put players in, that those are the teams that most likely get the new players. They're not going to want to come back because they see these teams that are advanced and competitive playing in this rec league that are just absolutely destroying other teams. And it's frustrating. It's infuriating.
There's also a couple of other things that can be done. We do have one fun event down here called Jingle Brawl.
Yeah.
And the kids, some of the kids will go and play wearing a Santa hat.
Yeah.
Things like that. But I had proposed, and no one really took me up on it, one event where you didn't play with your club team. You entered as an individual.
Mm-hmm. Like a free agent.
Then you would just have like this little, online fantasy draft by, computer, and you would play on that team just to have a little bit of fun with maybe having mixed results as far as skill levels are concerned. And just, one of the things that if you're relatively good at the sport, sometimes you forget that you're also a role model. Mm-hmm. And that role model is to not only the kids your age that you're much better at, who might look at you and say, boy, it'd be really cool to just play once with them, but also the kids, the younger kids. If you're 16 and you're a top player, never forget that there's a 10-year-old out there who worships you. And take the time. Spend a little bit of time with them. These teams, when they're at tournaments and you got the high school A on one field and you got the under 10 on the field next to them, instead of coming off and sitting on the sideline the whole time, wouldn't it be nice if that high school A team, some of those kids went over to the under 10s and talked to those kids on the sidelines? You just interact some during the event. I can tell you when I was 10, I had a 16-year-old basketball player on the block for the high school team. I would go to see him play the high school game, and it was like, my God, he's so good. And the sport breeds bonding too. And there's no reason not to take advantage of that. Go ahead and push a little bit beyond and take that extra step. You're selling the sport as you do that too. And there's just so many other ways that we know that we have an image problem at times. Some of it unfair, and some of it just, you got to deal with it. You got people who don't know any better out there who look at us in a certain way. The way you handle that is you go above and beyond to sell the sport. And a lot of the ways you do that is just be nice to the younger kid. Just be nice to the parent. I can tell you there's an awful lot of parents who are new to the sport who are on those sidelines. And if they see the top high school kid and the kid comes over and says, hey, I see your son on the field. He looks like he's doing this. I have a suggestion for him. Just imagine. Yeah. You've made that parent a fan for life.
Can I tell you a quick story about that? So when our first year, you remember when I told you we didn't have any experience. I didn't know anything about it. My boys didn't know it. So the first year we were playing, we ended up going to a club game at Florida State. I think it was Florida State versus like Ole Miss or something like that. Two club teams. They're not NCAA at all, so it's pretty loose. They're not charging admission or anything for this game. But we show up and the boys are watching, and they're down on the sidelines. They're kind of getting into it. They're not like with the players, of course, but they're on the fence line, and I'm sitting back in the stands and just randomly talking to a parent. And of course that parent, that their son is playing on the field, and the game gets over. It's like, well, hey, it's been really great talking to you. And this parent reaches out. It's like, well, do you think your boys would would like to go on the field? Would you think they'd like to meet some of the players? I think they would love that. And so this parent helped facilitate, and the field was open. And so we just wander onto the field at the end of the game, and their son's there. And he was so down to earth, and he made such a big impact on my boys. I can point to that moment as being the time when my boys realized that they could play in college. Like up until then, it was just like, you don't even think about it. It's like, oh, they're too good for me. And then as soon as they realize, they're talking to this player, he's like, dude, I was just like you, and I didn't know anything. I couldn't throw, I couldn't catch. And I'll tell you, from that day forward, my boys, they worked a lot harder at practice. They worked a lot harder at home. And sometimes just having that experience of meeting that person and having that unique one-on-one experience is life-changing. I know it was for me and my family. So, yeah.
Well, every year down here in January, we have the Florida Lacrosse Classic, which is the official national championship for the Masters. And one of the things I really enjoy when I go out there, besides seeing like half a dozen of my Hobart classmates from the class of 1980 who are still playing.
Good Lord.
Including one who's in the U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame, a whole bit. And I enjoy telling the kids who are manning the score table. And I'll look at them and say, do you know who you're looking at out there? That one held the record for most goals in a Final Four game for 30 years. And this one still has the record for most saves in a championship game at the D3 level. And this one's in the Hall of Fame, and that one's in the Hall of Fame. And this is that type of sport.
Yeah.
Where you can just have so much fun just talking and just getting to know people. I get people, once or twice a year, I get someone who walks up to me. Maybe I'm at the Final Four in Naples, or I'm, at a road game or whatever. They come up and they said, I just want to let you know, I've been reading what you're writing and really thank you for everything. You wrote something really nice about my son or daughter, and I just wanted to thank you for it. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it's just the way that this particular sport runs. And, we're making such great strides as a state. The kids that are going out there, they're making impacts at the D1 level. They're making impacts at the D2 level. The D3 Player of the Year last year at Tufts was Jack Regnery, is a Benjamin grad. Player of the Year. There is no limit to what this state can grow to, as long as we keep making sure to do the basics. Referees, growth, training, the amount of college coaches that show up down here after being big names up north just continues to grow. Matter of fact, up in your area, just before COVID, I was over at IMG for a major event. They were actually broadcasting the All-Star game on ESPNU. Dave Cottle and Dave Petramalo were running it. And I met Rick Soll, the former head coach at Navy, former head coach at Stony Brook. And he and I got into a conversation. He said, hey, I'm thinking about moving down here. Where should I like go to the Southeast? I said, Rick, go to the Panhandle. You've got a Navy presence there, a major Navy presence there. You're Absolutely. A natural fit. Everyone is interested. Chris Robinson leaves McDonough, the girls program, the top women's girls program in high school in America, national champ multiple years, comes down and takes over Lake Highland Prep. Tony Seaman comes down here from being the head coach at Hopkins and Penn and Towson, and he runs St. Andrews. And I can just run straight down the list of names like that over and over and over again. The IQ is always the last thing you learn. And the IQ is just growing by leaps and bounds in this state. We always had the athletes. Now they're really learning how to play the game properly. And you look around Division One, you see it. You look around Division Two, you see it. You look around all these colleges, you see it. We have the Sunshine State Conference in this state on the men's and women's side, Division Two. I've made the point that Division Two Sunshine State women probably be the most competitive conference in America, male or female, any of the three divisions. Up and down, 7 of the top 21 teams in the poll last year came out of the Sunshine State Conference final poll. And most of those games are free to attend.
That's good insight. Wow. I had no idea, honestly. I had no idea.
It's incredible what we have access to here.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to go out and find it.
Well, with that in mind, I want to make sure we save some time here to talk about how they can find it. And your resource, Florida Lacrosse News, is probably the premier way to find lacrosse information about Florida. So what are the things that you're looking at in this coming season?
Okay, well, basically, I moved, as I mentioned before, I moved the entire new content approach onto Substack as opposed to posting it to the website. It just was a lot easier on me to do it that way. And so you go to substack.com, look up Florida Lacrosse News. There are 2 versions of it. One is the free version and one is the premium version. Obviously, the premium version gives you access to more of the content. The free one, you still get the daily. I honestly thought I was going to be 3 days a week, from June until November. But to be honest, I've been going 5 days a week. I've had enough content to keep it going all summer long. So, that's what it is. It's either a monthly or an annual fee for the premium. I'm on Twitter at Florida LX, Instagram and Facebook at FLA, LAX, NEWS. But at this point, those are just places to find where I post, where you can find the articles. Also, probably. I do a good deal more on Twitter still. Used to do a lot of broadcasting on Twitter. When I went to the games, I would broadcast an interview of the winning coach after the game, and that was actually pretty popular. I think I have to get back to if I get a little bit more time to do that. I would like to get back to doing that and doing more interviewing myself. So that's the main way to find us. And I am covering the boys and the girls pretty much equally at this point. We do try to get all the press releases and then coverage of the kids up north. And that's basically the main way to find it. Used to do a lot more on YouTube. And there's some pretty cool things that I do too that I'm going to try to expand upon the upcoming year. We had a feature called Who's In, Who's Out. When the FHSAA would publish their power rankings each week out of Max Preps, we would do predicted brackets of what the high school playoffs would look like.
Cool.
That was a very popular feature. And there's the commitments, obviously. If the people are out there, if your kid has a commitment, if the school has a commitment, I prefer it to be from the high school perspective, not the club perspective. But I've loosened the reins a little bit on that over this past year. Send in the graphic, make sure I can find it on Instagram or wherever. We'll put that up. Transfers, same thing. We'll cover that part. New head coaches. Gulf Breeze just announced their new boys head coach. That was in today's Substack. And all of these things are what we want. I asked the people, the readership, let me know. Believe me, with 500 schools, I'm not going to catch them all. So let me know about that. Yeah, and that's the best way to keep in touch with us and just keep growing the ecosystem. I'm glad to see that you've started your part in doing this. Tampa Lax Report over in that area. Brevard Sports Network has done some nice coverage on their Facebook page. They broadcast games live. Some of the high schools have moved off the NFHS platform and are now on YouTube or on Huddle. And you can watch their games live that way. And there's some great action. I can watch Benjamin St. Thomas, St. Andrews' broadcasts on YouTube. These are marvelous games, if you're not playing that night or if you just want to watch a game, they're available.
Yeah.
And so, get out. Lax 904, I think Ray's pretty much pulling back this year. He's going to broadcast, just concentrating on his broadcasting this year. But, there are certain newspapers around the state that do some coverage too. And hopefully we just keep getting more and more sources like you on top of that, because there's a demand for the information. I can definitely tell you that. My readership grows. The number of subscribers has year over year took a big leap from the first year Substack to the second. And I suspect that it'll take another leap up once we get to December, January, and the season starts kicking in too. So, that's the easiest way to find me. Now, if you don't mind, if I could do a couple of quick shout outs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so the St. Thomas Aquinas head coach Terry Crowley's wife, Barbara, passed away a couple of days ago. She had been battling cancer a long time. Terry's the all-time winningest coach in the state, number of games won. And I knew Barbara. Obviously, I know Terry very well, but I've known Barbara for a number of years too. And she was quite a beacon for youth down here, and pretty much everything that she could do to help, she did. They were part of a major push to grow the sport when it was in its infancy down here. Barbara, rest in peace. We're going to miss you. Terry, the best to you and the family. Now, on a better note, Episcopal School of Jacksonville, Brooke McCoy was just named, I believe, yesterday or the day before, to the U.S. Under-19 women's team. So congratulations to you on that, Brooke, and looking forward to seeing you playing on that national team going forward. We've had a couple of more kids. We have had a number of kids who have made it to that final tryout stage lately. And, when you combine it with a Jared Bernhardt winning a Tewaaraton and all he's accomplished, and all the rest of the kids, Caitlin Wurzberger and what she did for the sport on the women's side in this state, and all the rest along the line, the growth in the sport is continuing to be there. And just keep it up, kids, and go out and get certified.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here. And like you said, we do have some amazing athletes here. You know it. I know it. These coaches out here know it. And it's time that the rest of the world, the rest of the nation starts to take a close, hard look at some of the players here on the Gulf Coast and in the state of Florida, because we are coming for you for sure. Yes. So, Lee, I appreciate you being here so much. I'm going to put all your links in the show notes so we can share that. Any parting shots, any advice for our players, how they get noticed by you?
Don't send me a highlight clip. There's no way with all the kids we have, I can put up highlight clips.
Yeah.
But if you do have an award, even if it's a non-lacrosse award, if it's an academic award, a local service award, let me know about it. Follow us on Instagram so I can see things that I can grab. Same thing on Twitter. You can always email me a commitment. If there's something, if you see someone else, doesn't have to be your family, that you think I should pay attention to. Maybe there's a charity event. Maybe you've got a tryout for a rec league, or whatever it is, send it in to lee@floridalacrossenews.com. I'll be more than happy to look at it, and if I can use it, I'm going to head and use it. If someone is doing something at college that I don't know about, someone was named the team captain, player of the week in their conference, send it in. I'll use it.
Yeah.
Don't rely on me to find it all. It's not going to happen.
We don't know what we don't know. I mean, that's where it's at. Lee, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. And I am really looking forward to seeing your content and the things you continue to do. And I will definitely be checking back in with you as we move forward. For everybody else, thank you for listening. This has been a pleasure. As always, get your reps in, be a good human, and we will see you next time.
If you like what you hear, drop us a like and follow wherever you downloaded this podcast from, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at First City Labs. Check back every week for more content. Thank you for being a part of the First City Lacrosse Podcast.